So I'm going to jump into episode 3. My name is Jamie Kale, and I'm the host of Marketeers podcast, or the Marketeers Clubhouse. Sorry. I'm a little kerfuffled. My co-host for the 3rd episode, and for the 3rd time is missing. That's Pierre Martin. And there he is up there on a missing poster. And there's a reward out for him. Be careful. He might be tired and or grumpy. So if you see him, just report to us his whereabouts. We hope him all the best. And he's probably out being an adult, not recording podcasts like me and my guest today are going to be doing. So best of luck to Pierre wherever he is. But today I'm going to be talking to a very good friend of mine. This gentleman has been my sales manager. He's been my GM at the company that I've worked for. He's been the senior VP of sales for the company I worked for. Everybody can see the progression of where this gentleman's gone to. He's also been a client to my different agencies. And most importantly, he's my friend. This person is Hilary Hartley. He is currently the president of the Thule Group Americas, which we'll get into in the next little bit. Obviously, in my world of action sports and that sort of stuff, Thule is a very known quantity to me. So for people who don't know out there, Thule makes all sorts of different products that we'll get into, but cut their teeth in the roof rack market, carrying bicycles and skis and kayaks and all that sort of stuff, and helping people get their pretty toys to the fun places to go use them. Hilary, thank you so much for joining me. You have a giant history of work, and it starts before Oakley. What I always like to do, because a lot of the people that will be looking at this are younger business people, younger marketing people, and they love to know sort of where, like, how do you become the president of Thule? How do you become a VP at a giant $1 billion company? And this is always, I think, quite interesting. So welcome. And if you don't mind, give me a little bit of introduction of who you are and where you're sitting today, and sort of a brief sort of history of my friend.
Great. Well, Jamie, thanks for the intro. Really excited to be here. So, look, I've been very fortunate my entire life to work in an industry that I'm super passionate about. And I grew up in the mountains, I grew up sports and the outdoors. And I was one of these lucky guys that early on in life knew what he wanted to do. Wanted to be involved with international business. I grew up in Europe, I've moved around a lot. I'm fortunate enough to speak a couple languages. And from a young age on, got involved in the industry. Started off, skiing, um, sailing, windsurfing, and was very passionate about the outside and the outdoors. So from a young age on, was able to combine my jobs, part-time jobs, full-time jobs, with my hobbies. So, you know, ski instructor, sailing instructor.
Yeah, that's a nice way to get into it. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Belgium, in Brussels. Lived there for 10 years, but we had a house in Switzerland, so that was kind of the vacation home. And when I was 10, we moved to Switzerland, and I was fortunate enough to live in a ski resort. So ski in, ski out, lived on the side of a lake. So winters it was skiing, summers it was sailing and tennis. So yeah, I get it. Very lucky to have a great environment that was all about sports and the outdoors. I moved to the U.S. right after high school. So I was 19, had a U.S. passport, had just never lived in the U.S., wanted to go to college in the U.S. And, like I said, knew early on I wanted to work international business, leisure, sports industry. So went to college, did a little business administration, Did not go to a fancy school, but worked while I was in school. Worked at a ski shop, coached skiing, and one thing led to another. Met one of the reps as I was at the ski shop, uh, and that kind of started the whole path. So I'm very thankful to my local rep at the time, who allowed me to come and help out at some demo days, turn some screws, tune skis all night long, and that's how it really started. So, right out of college, managed a ski shop, and at one point the rep was looking for a new tech rep, as I like to call it, a van jockey. That's how the journey started. So.
Amazing. Now, looking at sort of and knowing your history, your first work that you really sort of dug into, that wasn't sort of like the learning jobs, the ski shops, the bike shops, that kind of stuff that I was involved in as well. You went and you were running marketing and product for Rosinal. So that was your sort of entry in, and ski being one of your main passions. It was a really easy move for you to go over because you just knew the product so well. Um, in the role that you're doing then, and that was many, many years ago, you and I are no longer young kids. That was a different world where a young guy could get in, work his way up really clearly. And very obviously I did that as well. But you started and you got to cut your teeth in sort of product and marketing. When you were doing that back in that period, did that sort of stage you for your understanding of brand and its sort of power? Because you've ended up working for just brand after brand after brand, and not in like a career jumping way, but in a very clear linear path to take you to president. So in that work with Rosinal, did you sort of figure out the nuts and bolts of brand at that point?
Look, I think early on I did not know that. I'm not going to claim that I was a marketing expert, and even today I keep learning. I think I was fortunate enough that I understood, and I was lucky to work for leading brands. And was it at Rosenthal at the time? Uh, was it at Oakley afterwards? Swiss Army, Victorinox after that, and now at Thule. I did understand the value. Clearly, when you sell one of those brands and products from one of those brands, you right away have, people trust you. They want to talk to you. They, or at least it opens the door, and you have lots of credibility. So, no doubt that these brands that have been built for many, many years, give you that opportunity to really open doors, and again, fairly easily, I would say. So not based on my talents, but really working for brands that over the years have established themselves, have invested in the market, allows you really to get a foothold probably faster than if you would be with a brand that people are not aware of. At the same time, I would argue that if you start working for a brand that people do know, you're sometimes a little handcuffed on what people expect of you and your brand. So advantages that you can get a foothold relatively quickly. It opens doors. At times, the disadvantage that that you're kind of set in a mold and people expect certain things from you.
Does your brand need some help in the trade marketing department? Manage your sales tools with Regulator's easy-to-use features. Whether it's fixtures or displays, POP, custom art, or promo products, you can submit single or bulk orders for all your locations within minutes using a simple, streamlined process. Deliver content, manage your budget, and view the market all from the palm of your hand. Move up to 10 times faster than your competitors and capture all the opportunities that put your brand on top. Visit brandregulator.com for more information.
Yeah, I think that's, well, yeah, I see that clearly. And in today's environment, which is, I'm going to get to, it's really obvious because every brand is under pressure by micro brands that can act way quicker in market, can do faster iteration of product, faster marketing, all these different things, which creates a lot of pressure. Um, One of the things that I find really interesting with you is many of the companies that you have been in charge of running North American business. Let's be really clear. At Oakley, that's what you did. At Swiss Army Victorinox, that's what you did. At Thule, that's what that's what you're doing. There's this interaction, and I know with Oakley, at points it was not necessarily with you, but with me certainly, and with other people. It was a contentious environment between the North American market and the head office. You get to run a really interesting balance between having been born and understanding Europe. You speak what, 4 or 5 languages. You're really, really, when I look back at all of my bosses, air quotes, many of which are now my friends, and I have great relationships with, you were the best political boss that I ever saw. Like you could see what they wanted, understand what they wanted, but then sort of manage executing that in the US, which slash Canada, which can be a fairly tricky thing. I see it through a couple of companies right now that I'm involved with, where the overseas entity is coming from a smaller country and doesn't necessarily understand, say, the dynamics of the United States, and the fact that, Manhattan itself could be 5x the population of the country that they're literally sitting in right now, and the complexity of that, and then the sheer size of the US and its weird distribution with megacities. And even just understanding, most people don't understand that the giant component of the purchasing power of Canada lives right along the border of the US. And so from my seat, I always really, really respected your ability to be a gentle mover of the ship. Not they're crazy, we're going to do it our way, but you did eventually get things the correct way in North America by bending their stuff. I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think that's actually a real problem for leaders in the US with overseas partners. Do you have any, really, and I say this because I know it's going to be, but what's the sage advice to be able to negotiate that with less ego, with understanding their positioning, but also understanding that they don't understand necessarily what needs to be executed? Where do you come from on that?
Okay, and you're right. I'm lucky that I have the advantage of growing up in other cultures. I speak the language. Obviously, that allows you to communicate maybe a little differently. But even if it wasn't that way, and you work for a global brand, I think that you need to be very aware that, just like you said, Jamie, there's different cultures, different trends. Seasonality can be different, right? Latin America, it's going into summer, we're going into winter. So I think it's being a combination of being humble. I think it's a combination of wanting to listen and understand. And I do think a big part of getting it is going places. And I'm not saying you need to travel every day, all year round, but I do think as you go visit a different region or a different territory, and you're right, even within North America, right? I mean, argue somebody sitting in Vancouver versus somebody sitting in Texas, Florida, very different, can be a different culture. So I think as long as you can be sensitive that there are different trends, people have different talents, right? It's just being able to listen and absorb. Then, yes, I think the challenge and where people struggle more is where do you win, where do you fight, and yes, have to be very direct and very bold and say if you want to be successful in North America and you're a European brand, here are the things you need to do. And there's some Jamie, you were in the apparel business for a long time. I mean, sizing is very different for North America, right? I mean, Europeans want to have slim fit. We are more on the baggy side, and in general, people are bigger, right? So that's some very basic stuff. So um, it really comes down to understanding where your priorities lie. And I think some of the challenges are if let's say you're representing a European brand and you're trying to establish yourself in North America. If you just go to Europe, and say, look, you guys don't get it, you don't understand, um, it's not going to work. Like anything in life, it's like a team sport. You're in this together. You need to win some battles. I've been successful taking a focus, try one project, highlight a category, highlight a certain product, and say, look, let's try this. Let me show you. Let's get some data behind it. Another challenge is if you just go there with a hunch, that's hard, right? You need to go present stuff with some hard facts and say, you know what, I might need longer skis or wider skis because people, have more powder. It's not much man-made snow. That's one example. Um, so that's really, I think it's already starting off with knowing your own market, understanding what you need that you might not have today, and it could be on the marketing side, it could be on the product side. Focus on one specific thing, and I think with hard data, go and sit down with your counterpart, and that'll eventually get there. And again, I think you need to go visit them in their market so you can understand what's going on. Have them come and visit you here in North America, and then both sides kind of warm up to the fact that the markets are very different.
Yeah, it can be very different, and I find, from my perspective, sort of, which is very trade marketing centric, where my world, I'm charged with either helping companies clean up their trade marketing in North America so they can execute more affordably or better, or actually executing for them. And what I find is there's a little bit of a hard time for them to make a jump on the scaling that has to happen to be able to execute in North America. It's just so big. And it's not like in Europe where England runs, the UK runs that area. France has got their own distribution. In a lot of these ways, they're sort of broken up into these little pieces, and they can manage the scaling issue with individual teams, because in a lot of instances, these are broken up into language barriers as well as geographical barriers. But in North America, with one large geography, with one standout place, which is Quebec, Canada, that has a very official, very hard language that you've got to navigate, the rest of it's all English. And it's a huge population and it's diverse. And so I always see that brands struggle. It's like when, like, I can't conceptualize what $1 billion is. I can't get it in my head. It's such a large number. I can understand what 1 million does. I kind of get 100 million. When you get above that, like $1 trillion is a completely bizarre number to me. And I think that people struggle with some of that scaling component of it, just to visualize it in their head. And I think you're very good at encapsulating and bringing back the struggles that can exist with those things, and expressing that they just don't naturally fit and work sometimes. And I honestly really admire that. With the scope and scale of what you do, and the two brands that you're at now, like Oakley was probably a couple $1 billion brand. Luxottica is an $80 billion brand. Luxottica Kessler, which was who you were working for at the end there. Those are monsters with large resources. The last two brands you're working at are sub $1 billion brands, I believe, globally. I might be wrong, but honestly, it doesn't matter. But they're exponentially smaller, which means that you've got smaller resources to work with, but you got to be able to produce the same things. I would assume that there's inherent challenges. Was it easy enough for you to make the step down from, not that Luxottica Oakley has unlimited budgets, but they definitely had potentially more resources to go to. Was there an interesting step down to that going into the president role at the last two companies that you had to get your head around, or was it fairly natural and easy for you to just sort of correlate and spin those numbers down?
No, there's a learning. There's no doubt, and I think the biggest learning is that you need to focus on where you want to win. I think the biggest challenge is going to a company that represents or is in different product categories. So if you're selling just eyewear, and Jamie, you saw it at Oakley, right? You had apparel and you had eyewear, and then you had prescription eyewear. That would make things a little bit more complicated. And when I'm at Thule right now, we're in the roof rack business. Everybody knows that. We're also in the juvenile business, so we have strollers. We're in the luggage, packs, bags, and luggage business, and we're in the RV business. So yes, we are a $1 billion+ company. We, a little less than half of that is in this region America. So you have marketing budgets in accordance to your business. So you can't do everything. And the biggest learning for me is, I used to prepare these strategic plans and I'd ask every product manager, sales manager, give me your top 3, 5 priorities. You add them all up, you end up with 20 priorities. Not doable. Not doable. I think the biggest success and my biggest learning has really been you have to look at your organization and say, what are the top 3 to maximum 5 initiatives? And then everybody marches to do. So, and you're a creative guy, you run an agency, you've developed many, many products throughout your life. There's so many ideas out there and good ideas, but you can only execute to a certain level. So I think it is key that you develop a strategy, plan. Some of these key initiatives, can be are more tactical, might be a focus for a year. Some other ones are multiple year approaches. And I think that's the only way that you can really take your resources. And let's say your average marketing, resource is 5%, 6%, 4% of sales. Um, you take that bucket of money and you decide what you're going to focus on, what product, what type of customer, and potentially what geography, right? And I can share, a project that we're working on right now, which is the juvenile category. Again, the awareness is relatively low. We know relatively small business for us, but huge potential. So we will overspend, and it's going to be one of our focuses. So now we've created a strategy, but we know that we can't do juvenile across North America. That is not possible because of the marketing budget that we have and the number of reps that we have today. So we've decided very specifically to do some geo targeting. We will focus ourselves on 3 key regions within North America, 2 in the US, 1. And I think if we establish ourselves there and we do a good job and we get foothold, then we can expand that out.
We're not here for the snooty wine critics or long-haul collectors. Hell, we're not even here for the high rollers. But we do think it's about time wine cellars turned into swoon-worthy works of art. Our experienced designers will bring your dream wine cellar to life, fitting any size space and aesthetic requirements in your home. Our craftsmen carefully hand-build your cellar to give you a wine storage space that really feels like you. Visit themoderncellar.com for more information.
Very cool. If anyone that's watching and listening is interested in it, the brand that Hilary's talking about is Chariot Trailers, and Chariot. I don't know if it's anything other than Chariot when it comes to the juvenile.
It's under Thule now, but
it's under Thule. Okay, and so it's a just imagine like high-tech strollers to run with your baby and toddlers with and pull them behind your bikes. We've all seen that product, and they convert into ski product where you can pull them around and stuff, and it is ubiquitous in the athletic world. You guys, I would believe, own that category. There's nobody that is producing stuff that's better. I'm imagining that in the grand scheme of strollers and that juvenile product, you guys are probably a smaller number there with a huge window of opportunity to be able to attack it. You already own the sporting goods world, which, to be honest, puts you guys in an amazing position because you're the action sports version of a child carrier, which is probably the coolest way to do it. And you can sort of attack from that point, which is amazing. It's interesting because when I was sort of thinking about you and the last 2 companies, Victorinox and now at Thule, both of those companies were really exceedingly known for a product. When you looked at a roof rack on a car, you go, oh, you got a Thule. It's like you guys almost had this rollerblade-esque, Kleenex-esque control over the marketplace, which I believe you do. And if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you guys have a very healthy OEM business with auto manufacturers, and then you have your aftermarket retail business to sell racks. And so you guys are really are the owners of that category, which is impressive. When we look back at Victorinox, most people know it as Swiss Army knife. They don't necessarily know Victorinox as a name until they dig into the company a little bit more. And Oakley was a little different. Rosenthal was a little different. Those were really brand centric companies. And if in the case of Victorinox, which was your past job where you were stewarding that brand, you had a whole bunch of changes in the industry. The knife, what people wanted to carry for knives was different. It went from a Swiss Army knife to like this very military spec'd thing with that. It was a completely different thing. It didn't have 1,000 tools to it. It was just one insane, crazy knife. And so the attack vectors from that, there was a couple large companies, but there is an insane volume of small companies that are very nimble and very easy to create and iterate product and change their marketing so quickly from coming in. And I know that Victorinox sold that style of product too. You guys did have that, but you were so entrenched in the product that you had. Is there, and this might apply to Thule, is there inherent built-in problems getting over the hump that you were the Kleenex of that industry? You were the ubiquitous in Swiss Army knife, and in Thule you are the roof rack guys. Does that make it hard to attack the other categories?
Yeah, look, I'll focus more on Thule. Victorinox is a great brand, and but that's my past, and so I would say that you are right. People know you for a certain product and expect a certain thing, and maybe the one parallel that I could have is between Victorinox and Thule. When you bring out a Swiss Army knife or a Thule roof rack, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that says something negative, right? In general, these are standout products that have been developed over many years and leaders in their industry. They're premium products. It's not the low end stuff. So there are a lot of similarities. Afterwards, as you branch out into another product category, yes, you can have challenges. And you're right. At Victorinox, time they try to get into the apparel business, and I would argue the product was great, but it was really hard to get that foothold. The expertise was not there, and ultimately Victorinox decided to walk away from that category. If you look at Thule, we are roof racks. I think what we've done a really good job at is that we're staying within our wheelhouse. So our slogan is "Bring Your Life." So you can bring product on the roof of your car, behind your car in a hitch. You can bring your baby, your child in a stroller or in a bike carrier. You can bring your toys in an RV, so we're in the RV, outdoor. So I believe as an organization, and look, there's many companies that completely branch out and have very, very diverse product categories and are very successful. But it does make it easier if you can stay within your wheelhouse, establish yourself, really do a great job. And I think a lot of companies tend to launch something, and before they really are very good at that category, they branch into another category. And that's where I've seen mistakes made in the past because it does take time, patience, and investments from a marketing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, to get into a new product category. Right? I mean, we are at Thule in the luggage, packs, bags, and luggage category. Again, you bring your life, you bring your gear. Lots of potential for us to do more. And even within that category, who are we targeting? Are we going to target the traditional business traveler that carries around what I call the black plastic box? That is not us. We've decided not to be there. We're more adventure, outdoor, travel, leisure, kind of that hybrid, work, pleasure bag. And let's focus on that and do a really good job on that. And I think, again, that's just one example for us. There's so much potential in that category to grow that there is no reason to go outside and add even more product categories. So, as you mentioned, what did I learn over my years? Don't jump too quickly. Establish yourself, be solid, be strong, and then, when you really feel that you've maximized things, you can move on to another category.
Yeah, I love that. And you would know this. I'm a brand first person, and I firmly believe that the products that a brand produces are just the fulfillment of what the brand has promised the consumer. So in this, in the world of Oakley, which I'm exceedingly, I worked for them for a bajillion years. The promise of the action sports brand that would never let you down, that would protect your eyes, that would always be there when you needed them. The product held, it fulfilled that promise every single time. And of course, then there's the stuff that the brand has to do correct after, the post service, the warranty, the communications back and forth to the consumer. All of those things are very important. But looking at things from a branded perspective, I always feel that the product is secondary against the brand's main vision. And basically, you guys, you transport precious things, whether it's your baby or whether it's your $15,000 mountain bike, which is somebody else's version of a baby. Or it could be, as I've seen a million times in the parks, a small little foo-foo dog being pushed around in a chariot. That's a baby for somebody, and it's their precious thing. And you guys are interesting because that's what you guys do, is you help people safely transport their precious things all the time, which I find really interesting. It's a cool thing. Oakley, built to protect your eyes. They do it in a really cool, stylish way, blah, 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 blah. But it protects your eyes, and it's a great product. One of the things that I wanted to chat with you about, because I think this is a common thing that I'm seeing, is I am, and my lost co-host, we're poor Pierre. We're firm believers in breaking down the silo, specifically at the intersection of marketing and sales. When it's very specifically when the closer you get to the product or the system getting into market. So trade marketing, event marketing, social media marketing, all the different functional groups that exist there, in that transition into the sales world. There used to be really clear walls between those two, and the sales tools would leap over a wall to the sales team with not much interaction back and forth between that. I'm seeing more and more, because the smaller brands that are out there, and in Thule's world, for anyone who doesn't know, there's a bunch of different bike rack companies building kind of wacky things, and they're applying pressure in the core mountain bike world, let's say. And but they don't have any brand, which they have great product, but people worry buying that product and so forth because they don't have a brand necessarily powering it. But with all these pressures, and with some of those companies being able to move fast, I see the silo between the sales tools delivery team, which is the last part of the marketing team, and the actual sales team being a lot closer of an interaction. Are you seeing more of those breakdowns to try to be able to move faster in the marketplace with your teams? Or what does it look like over the past little bit for you? You've seen this evolution all the way through. What is it looking like?
From brand development to simple market executions, 54 Blue helps brands of all sizes grow with sustainability in mind. Their full stack range of services include print, fabrication, design, web, interactive, content marketing, brand consulting, creative strategy, and more. Why not execute at the level of the big guys? Join some of the world's largest brands and lean on 54 Blue for your next go-to-market. Visit 54blue.com for more information.
Yeah, Jamie, it's a great point. Look, there is always competition out there. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's always going to be somebody that comes up with something cool and new. and sometimes it really has some legs, and you need to be careful. So I think as a bigger organization where you are more set into a development plan over 2 3 years, and you kind of have a step and a process you need to follow, you do need to keep kind of authenticity. And in order to be authentic, you do need to listen to the market. And you're right. I've always said that becoming number one is doable. Staying number one is the real challenge, and that's the true same thing in sport. It's in business the same. So, if you're a toolie and you're a market leader, and you're not going to be open-minded about potential new trends, right? How are people transporting their bikes? It used to be on the roof of the car. Now it's behind the car. In the future, is it going to be carrying your bikes behind the car, but instead of vertically, horizontally? There's all kinds of different things going on. People have pickup trucks that are going to start putting their bikes inside the bed, outside the bed. So if you want to be successful and you're one of the big players, you need to keep the side of being nimble. You might not be as quick and as fast to market as a little startup, and that's okay, right? But you do need to be able to show your customers and your consumers, more importantly, that you're listening and that you will come to market with something that they're actually looking for. And sometimes, as a leading, bigger machine, you're going to miss something. You might be a year or two late. Your reps are not going to be happy. Your consumers might, go to a competitor. But I do think that, like you mentioned, if you're with a brand that really has quality product, where a lot has lots of R&D, lots of research, um, ultimately you're going to build a great product if you listen to your customer and your end consumer, and you can stay in that number one position.
Totally. It doesn't take too many $15,000 bikes to hit the road behind your car to realize that the boutique rack that you purchased didn't withstand and hold its promise to you. And those companies stand up and go down. There are a few very good ones, and that's a fact, and that's the way it is. But precious things being transported rely heavily on the value of the brand and the brand promise against it. And being the incumbent in the industry, Thule has obviously got that. I don't think anybody could ever deny.
Yeah, you just can't get cocky, Jay. I think that's the big thing, right?
Totally.
And if you think you're number one and you know it all, and you know what, this is my product and this is the only thing I'm going to sell, and I don't care what anybody else is doing, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I firmly agree with that. I think that exists through every aspect of it. I think that's a product thing. I think that's a business structure thing. And I know that you believe that. We've had talks behind the scenes where tweaking business structure to be faster and nimbler is just a thing. And as the incumbent, you can't run the same old bureaucratic systems that were in place when you got there, because they might not actually function at today's speed. And so I believe that there's always room for new things in old brands that speed them up and bring them up to speed. And frankly, that's one of the things I get hired to do, is to come in and go, nope, cut this, cut this, cut this, and here's the procedures and policies that make you move quick in market. And so I always find that very interesting. And I love talking to someone from a brand that literally owns an industry, because it's just a different position. It's easy as an up and comer. You get to move fast, and you get to be nimble, and you get to pick on a target. When you are the target, it's a different thing, in my opinion. And you have to be more insightful against your own business. And the market feedback is super, super important, because you have more data points. You have way more data points than those small guys. So I find that an intriguing business thing. And truthfully, all of the companies you've been at have been the industry leader, undeniably, through all of those categories. Rossi, definitely. Arguably at the time, there might have been another one, but Rossi was an industry leader. Oakley, undoubtedly, they were the guys. Swiss Army, in that knife business, in that sort of what they do, there's no doubt they were the guys. And Thule 100%. So I find that quite interesting from that area.
Jamie, the one thing I would throw in and add to that is there's a lot of cool new products and niche products that we all want to get excited about. And I think a lot of times startups, can get carried away with the cool stuff. Ultimately, if you want to run a business, and you know this, you've run several businesses yourself, you can be very happy running a small little business with niche items that turn over really quickly, and that's great and that's exciting. If you want to grow your brand and become, a Thule, become an Oakley, become a Rosinell, then you need to find this balance of what are the cool niche products that really present your brand as a cool brand. But at the same time, you need to be able to do volume and you need to be able to have some scale of economy and you need to be efficient. And that's the challenge, right? It's and I look up to companies like a Nike, right? Huge machine. They keep coming up with these fresh releases, these one-offs. So they keep the cool factor, but at the same time, you can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and find your basic Nike shoe that they sell volumes and volumes and volumes of. And I think those are the companies that I look up to, and that's what I've tried to do throughout my career is let's be cool, let's have fun, but at the same time, we need to sell stuff, right? Because that's where we make the money.
I believe that the funny thing is at one point, bikes on your roof was a really weird thing. And, and Thule was that novel new thing. There was a clear point where that was. Now it happens that invention, and there was other roof racks out there, but doing it the way Thule did it was very new. It was so much more professional than everything that existed in the marketplace at that time that it literally blew everyone's minds. Same with the Thule roof box, like the ski coffin box blew everyone's brains out and it took over the marketplace. And that was an original thing that existed and came out. So there's, and then it's always funny because brands get built on that and then just become the standard of that. So I find it interesting because at one point you guys were young. You were the young brand and you were the annoying brand for someone else. And you were the fast moving, super nimble, easy to market. And you went in and you blew up the marketplace with really cool, innovative things. And then the ship just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've seen that at so many different companies. And sometimes the ship, in the case of the surf industry, where the ships got so big and it wasn't able to support the marketplace, wouldn't support it anymore because it was built on trend. Those ships all sunk, all of them. In fact, they're all on one big ship now called Board Riders. All the surf brands, except for one owned by my friend Nick Woodhouse over at Authentic Brands Group. Props out to Volcom. They're all in one ship. Like the whole industry ported over and they're existing in one space now. And so it's a really interesting world. Brands never disappear. And as a brand guy, I look at it and look at the brand for what it's worth. When I was selling stuff, a couple of my brands asked us to burn brand equity on, like you said, bad product, potentially, or categories that the brand didn't belong in, which, in, lots of different brands, they try to reach out and really quickly grow their brand equity and start spending it to see what they can get for growth. And that can create all sorts of mayhem in the marketplace for that brand and erode it. Thule's done a very good job of not doing crazy things. You guys just haven't. You've stuck in your lane really hard and you're still the incumbent many, many, many years, probably 35, 40 years later from when the first real ski box and all that stuff, the real proper Thule racks came out. Like how old is Thule as a company right now?
We're 80 years old.
Wow. So you guys have been around forever. What did you guys do before the roof rack market really became your main thing? Because couldn't have been your main thing for the longest time.
We had some, odd little accessories in Sweden where we supported a bunch of other industries. And the roof racks, I believe, really was in the 60s. So even that's been, 60 years ago.
Amazing. Cool story. So when you're doing stuff, do you weigh brand and commodity against each other? So like your roof racks are commodities, your rails, your feet, all these different things that you have, which truly, like when you sell an OEM car part, it just becomes a commodity, I'm assuming. How do you guys at Thule, where you have lifestyle products like your Chariot, well, Thule kids trailers now, and your commodity-esque products, how do you balance the importance between that? Like, I think you've already kind of referenced it with overspending against in certain categories, like you're going to do with your juvenile product. But do you guys, as a company that really does have commodity-based product out of the sporting goods world, how do you balance that?
Well, we're fortunate enough that in the automobile industry, we have some very strong partners where we do sell our product as an OEM. A bigger chunk of our business is actually Thule branded, right? People realize and see the value of having a Thule rack. So if you're going to go out and buy a new Subaru, for example, Subaru feels strongly that a Thule rack has a much higher perceived value than potentially a Subaru branded rack. So we have a great partnership with them, and they sell and they accessorize their vehicles with purely Thule branded products. So that's one way. Yeah, we do. I mean, we have every retailer, car dealer, for example, in North America. There's almost 800 of them. Has a Thule display. That's part of our agreement. So they promote our products. We develop some products, together with them. And yes, very good partnership. And and that's an example of working Subaru and Thule together. We believe in their brand, they believe in ours, and yes, we promote each other together. At the same time, we have a partnership with Land Rover. Right? If you look at the latest, the Defender and the platform that comes with the Defenders right now as a product developed by Thule, it is not branded Thule, and that is okay. We are strictly an OEM. We will deliver them a product that's specifically designed for their vehicle. Comes in a bunch of different sizes, different options. And yes, indirectly, people find out the technology and the experience that we've shared now with Land Rover then trickles into product that we will develop under the Thule product. And we're launching a product called the Thule Caprock, which is a platform base, which will be, the Thule branded, sold at a wide distribution.
Very cool. You guys, speaking of the automotive world, you guys got into the sort of van life craze. Back at the very start of COVID, I was lucky and I had a little bit of foresight. I ordered a Mercedes Sprinter about a year before. It took about a year to get my van. And as an avid mountain bike rider, and I live far out of my hometown of Calgary, Alberta. When I want to go mountain biking, the mountains are kind of like in between me. Like I have to go to the mountains and then travel almost the same distance as I would back to Calgary to get to my ranch. So I've got this big triangle that I have to travel. So I thought it was really wise to actually go into a van. It gives me a warm place to change. I can carry my bikes inside the vehicle and that sort of stuff. So it became a really obvious thing. And then when COVID hit, I had the time and I took advantage of it and went over to my fabrication shop and we plunked my van in. We built my van. It was beautiful. I then found out that you guys were into van life products, and I kind of kicked myself not being able to call you and leverage my relationship with you to get good stuff. But you guys jumped into that, and it's a trend, undoubtedly. And sooner or later that trend will go away. But you guys are creating some really cool products, and you guys were quite nimble to jump into that category. How's the success of that? How's the is it marketed exceedingly different? It's a kind of the same person that would purchase a Subaru, just potentially more of an upscaled price point. How has that been as a success for Thule?
Look, in general, the RV business is a relatively small part of our business in the America. It is a big part of our business in Euro, so Europe, rest of the world. We actually bought a company that was or is based in Belgium, and for some of your spectators, that have been to Europe, you know that this whole camping trend has been around for a long time. Camping cars before the Sprinter vans came along. So the awning business has really been a big business for Thule for many, many years. Now you're absolutely right. You know, during COVID, this trend of people wanting to be outdoors, take their vehicle, and it doesn't matter if you have a Volvo station wagon, a Subaru Outback, or if you're able to get a Sprinter van, you're going to accessorize that. So we offer a great assortment of awnings, some side panels, some tents that really allow you to take your awning and create some privacy and some extra space. We have some bike racks that are specifically designed for the RV world. So on the back of your van. So in many cases, we were already in this industry. This was not something that we did just because of COVID. We were already in that environment. But you're right. We've seen huge growth and great opportunity, especially in the Americas, since we are a relatively small place right now.
Amazing. I love to see that. That was very interesting to me. And the bonus is there's the van life is a perfect area to speak to poor, lots of companies building potentially B grade product for on trend, trying to just get it into the market quickly. Cheap awnings, like poor made stuff. And I weeded through a lot of it. And there was not really a ton of like very great branded options where you could entrust like pulling the awning out and making sure it works when you're in the middle of nowhere, or, you know, having your accessories actually function the way you are. So it's cool to see that you guys are in there and you guys have spent the money to do it. I find that in these instances, when I get to chat with my friends, and again, thank you so much. I always appreciate having my friends on. I like to, you know, you have a cool job. And Hilary, I think you're a cool guy. I don't know if you believe you're a cool guy, but you're a cool guy. And I think a lot of people like to do it. I've got a thing on these podcasts where I invite you to do it with me if you want to. It's called the Cool Confessional. And it's where I let something a little bit that I kind of keep guarded, because I think most people sort of go through life, and there's a saying that I like, and it's a naked man can't be pickpocketed. And so if all my secrets are out in the world, there's nothing anyone can get me with. And so in the last one, the very first one I did, I admitted that I loved the TV show The Voice. I've literally watched every single episode of that that has ever been out. I love it. It's great. Last one, I admitted that I cry every single time I sing the Canadian anthem. I cry. It's uncontrollable. I've tried not to, but every single time. So feel free to join me if you want. But today, for people listening, today I want to tell everybody that I love mani-pedis. In fact, I went and got one by myself yesterday, just because I felt like I needed a little bit of luxury and a little bit of a break. And I looked at my fingernails and I was like, ooh, I think maybe today is my mani-pedi. And I went to this place that I always go to and usually go with my wife. But yesterday I just did it solo. I got myself a coffee and went and had a beautiful mani-pedi. And that's generally something most guys don't really admit to, but in the Cool Confessional today, I'm going to let everyone know that that's clearly a thing that I do. Feel free to join me. The Cool Confessional is always an open area. Please don't feel pressured. But for everyone listening, there's my episode 3 confession. Hilary, do you have anything you'd like to get off your chest today?
Well, I think you and I would go through a box of Kleenexes if we were in a sad movie or an emotional movie. So I'm with you. And you know what? I'll share with you. I've cried in meetings, right? I've shed tears in front of my boss. So yes, I think showing emotion, that's me. Not everybody's that way, and that's okay. I'll admit to that.
Yeah, I take that. In fact, we did a Remembrance Day in Canada. November 11th is Remembrance Day, similar to the US Veterans Day. And I had all my team gathered and I bawled through the entire talk that I gave. I had to, in fact, twice defer to my business partner, Mark, because I literally couldn't do it because I get so emotional about those types of subjects. So Thanks for joining me in the Cool Confessional. I think people need to realize that you might be, a very well accomplished business person, but you're also a human, and I think people need to realize that there's more freedom in being a human than there is in being a fake version of a human. And I love to remove those filters. Hilary, it's a pleasure. I'd love to have you back. There's so many things I'd like to talk to you about. I want to have you out next time you're in Calgary. Come out to the ranch and let's play some tennis. That option is an offer is there. I want to thank you for your time, your insight into your past and into Thule Americas. It's a great company. I've watched you be a great leader for many people. So I hope they appreciate what they've got in you, because I truly appreciated you when you were guiding my career at Oakley. So thank you for being a great boss and a great friend. And for everyone else, Thule's a great place to work if Hilary's there. So if there's job opportunities at Thule, take it, because the leader at the top there is fantastic. So Hilary, thank you again for your time. Super appreciate it. We'll talk real soon.
Jamie, thank you. And let me just add and tell you that it's never a one-man show, and you know that, right? So I appreciate all the kind words, but it's all about the team. So surround yourself with good talent. Don't be afraid to have somebody on your team who might know a little bit more than you do in very specific areas, because we're in this together. So, but Jamie, thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to have a follow-up, happy to have people reach out to me.
I love it. Thanks, Hilary. Appreciate it. Everyone, enjoy the Christmas season. Take care.